Welcome to 2 plus 2 equals cabbage. In this video, we're going to answer the question, how do I deploy a Palo Alto firewall to GCP with Terraform? So we'll go through and review the code. We will look at some things that are a little bit different in GCP than from the other cloud providers. We'll deploy the firewall. We'll have a Windows instance along for the ride for testing. And in this video, we've got a bit of a bonus because I think there was a bit of a bug in GCP in the Windows image. So we'll see how we manage that and get things running at the end. So let's figure it out together. Let's start off at the GitHub. This is where we have all of our code in the repositories for the different projects that we'll be working on. In this case, we're going to be working on GCP, Palo Alto, it's down here. Note some of the other ones that are already done have the video links right next to them. So if you want to make this your jumping off point, you could. But we'll just go in here and just take a quick look at the repository for GCP, Palo Alto. So all the files are here. Clone these down locally so we can work from them. And as we're going along in the video, or as you're going along trying to do this yourself, keep the README handy. Pretty detailed steps for how to do everything in the video. I may miss some of the details on exactly where to find things or how to do things. This is a great place to come just to get all that detail. As always, if there's any things missing here, let me know, and we'll try to get things updated. But so that's all we need to do here in GitHub. Let's move over and look at the code just to show you some of the idiosyncrasies that are within GCP, and we can move on from there. Looking at VS Code, we've got our GitHub repository on the local workstation, and we're opening it up here. Just some of the things pointing out, a lot of the things may be repetitive from other videos, so we'll try to go over them pretty quick. But the Terraform TFRs template is where all the credentials need to go for connecting to your GCP instance. Some of the things that come from you are things like your public IPs. You'll need to find that and pop it in here, so that way when we're logging into things like the firewall and the Windows instance, the firewall rules will allow your public IP. Something that's unique about GCP in doing this deployment is since we have multiple interfaces on the Palo Alto firewall instance in GCP, it doesn't allow you to have multiple instances, multiple interfaces on the instance in the same VPC. So in GCP, we have to create a VPC for each interface that we're using. So we've got a management VPC, an untrust VPC, and a trust VPC. So that's one thing that's pretty different from the other providers. The other ones just don't require that of you. So that's something important to note. But otherwise, we've got the usual stuff in here. We've got IP addresses assigned, so we're doing everything statically, so it's easy to follow and things like that. And then in GCP, GCP has a firewall construct. In other solutions, it might be called a security group or something like that. In GCP, they call it a firewall, so we're naming our firewall, and it works similarly. We're allowing access to the management interface from our public IP, and we're allowing outbound access, and we're depending on the Palo Alto firewall for the main security of the untrust and trust networks. So we're not putting a lot of controls in this firewall here because we don't want to have two things trying to control the same thing. And the Palo Alto files here, just going to deploy the instance, get it up and running, and we'll move on from there. We've got some outputs down here at the bottom, things that'll be useful during our setup. So we've got the public management IP, the untrust IP, the trust IP, less important, and then we're outputting the URL for the management interface, but it's basically just the IP. And then the one thing in this case with GCP that we uncovered during testing was we had an instance of the Windows 2022 server that was working just fine up until about late October, early November of 2025. So we left the troubleshooting in this video because, or at least the evidence of the problem, so we can point it out that things change very quickly in these cloud providers, and sometimes an image will change, and if you're using the default image that's available, the current image, it may stop working the way you expect, and you may have to go back and troubleshoot. So anything you find out in GitHub or anything like that, that's a working model of a project, you may go to deploy it yourself and all of a sudden it doesn't work, and there may be either bugs in the image or some change in Terraform or something like that. So we're keeping this in here. So as you see here, we've got the default image, which is when you put this image in here, it's just taking whatever the latest and greatest Windows 22 image is. And what we'll find is this one has a bug in it with the password reset function, and we'll show that. Switching back to an older one that we know is good by specifying the actual specific image is what worked there. So that's pretty much it for any things that's out of the ordinary here. One thing in addition that we want to do before we move on to deploying is we're going to go into our firewall config. This is the Palo Alto firewall XML file that we're going to use to import to bring our working config on board. And all we need to do here is we need to change the references to the public IP that's in the file and change it to yours. So you just do a find and replace 5.5.5.5 and just put in your IP address here. In this case, there's 2 instances of it. It'll update and then we'll be off to the races. So we'll be good there. So with that, we're ready to start with our Terraform deployment, and we always start with Terraform init. And this goes through and make sure we have the environment set up, creates lock files and things like that. So we're ready to go forward. This will take just a minute. All right, no problems there. Terraform plan. And this is optional. You don't have to do Terraform plan. I always say that. I like to do it just so it shows me what I might have wrong. Maybe I have an error or something like that, and it'll spit that out before I try to push it out to the environment. No problem there. So now we can do Terraform apply. And this will actually commit the environment as we need it to. I'll just type yes, go ahead, and wait for that to finish. Okay, that went along as we expected. We've got an apply complete, resources 20, no change, no destroyed. And we've got all of our outputs down here that we will use as we're doing some of the different tasks. Now, when you deploy a Windows instance or Palo Alto firewall VM instance, you need to give it a few minutes to boot up. So we'll give these a few minutes to boot up, and then we'll jump over to the GCP console and take a look around there. We've moved over to the GCP console, so now we're ready to look at what's got published here. Let's start off with the VPC network, and as you navigate here, you can do it a few ways. You can search through the search, you can go to the hamburger menu, or you can use the quick access. We're just going to look at the VPC network here. And as we see here, we've got 3 VPCs that were created. Again, it was a necessity to do that because in order to attach multiple interfaces to a single instance in GCP, you've got to use separate VPCs. So we've got management, trust, and untrust. We'll just click on management here. Most of the settings will be similar in the other ones, but here we see we've got our subnets where we've got, here's the naming convention that we're using. That comes from our locals.tf. We've got the subnet of the management interface right here, /24 just for testing. That's about it for here. We don't really need to look at too much on the VPCs, but there they are. Let's go over here and we'll look at our instances that we installed there under Compute Engine, VM instances. So we've got our 2 instances. The first one is our Palo Alto firewall. And we see IP information here. And we can see in here we've got 3 interfaces. So we've got 3 IPs, each on a separate subnet. We've got our external IP that we'll use for management and our external IP that we'll use for the untrust interface when we're ready to try to pass traffic through that way. And then on our Windows instance here, we're going to go in here, and this is where we would reset the password. In GCP, you've got to do it this way. You've got to come in here and set Windows password. If you remember from earlier, we expect this to fail when we hit set, only because I suspect there's a bug in the current image. Where in this case, we tried to use the latest and greatest image of the Windows Server 2022. And I believe through my troubleshooting and research that this is a bug. I'm not sure, but that's what I think. And so what we need to do is we need to jump back out to VS Code change our code just a little bit, reapply it, and then we'll come back in here and we'll try to reset the password again. All right, we're back where we left off in VS Code. So we're going to go over to the windows.tf file. And as I showed earlier, we're just going to switch these images out. We're going to uncomment out the one that we know works from earlier in the year, and we're going to comment out the one that we know didn't work, and we'll save our file. And then we're going to go run our apply again. And it'll take just a minute, and we'll jump back over to the GCP console and make sure it works. All right, so we pushed out that new image. So we should have a good working image of our Windows VM here. So we can go ahead and go back into the instance, set the Windows password, and hopefully not get an error and get a password back. Yeah, that's how it should look. So we're going to copy the password to our clipboard and close. So that worked as expected. So we ran into the bump there where we had a potential bug in the Windows image that we were using, the default image. So we switched it to an older one, and now we're able to reset that Windows password. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to SSH into the Palo Alto firewall so we can set the admin password there. And then after that, we can use the web interface. So let's go over and do that. All right, we're just using a Linux box here to do our SSH into the Palo Alto management interface. And all we're going to do is use the SSH command locally. We have our key in there that we created. Now, we didn't go over it in the video, but it's in the README if you need instructions for how to create that. The key pair so you can use it for the firewall. You will need that in advance of deploying it at all. So go ahead and do that at the beginning. And so we're logging in as admin at the public IP, the management IP, and we'll hit enter. And this is the first time we're logging in with the certificate, so it wants to add it to the certificate store. So we've done that, and now we are logged in to the command line interface of the firewall. So in order to change the admin password, we need to go into configure mode, and then we'll do set management config users admin password. And then we'll just put in a password. Now, once we've set the password here at the console, it becomes active on the firewall. So if you don't commit it, it won't save it. So if the firewall reboots, it'll revert back to the old password, or in this case, no real password at all. So we're going to commit this. And this will take a few minutes to commit. And once it's done, we will just go and try to log in with the web interface. We've made our way over to the web browser, and now we're just going to go and type in our management IP. And here we've got the web interface. So we're just going to use the username admin to log in. And then we'll use the password we set from the SSH session. So we're logged in now, and we can get to work importing our saved configuration so we can move on with our testing. So in order to import that XML file, we're going to start off at the device tab. And then under the setup option here on the left, we'll go to operations. First, we have to import the file. So we're going to import the named configuration snapshot. We'll browse for it. And once we've selected the file, it shows up in there, and we'll just click OK to import it. So all that's done is it's put the file on the storage of the firewall. It hasn't activated it or loaded it up into memory yet. So we've got to go to the next step, which is to load it. So we'll load the name configuration snapshot. We'll pick the one from the list, which is this one we imported, firewall-config. Running config is what is currently running on the firewall. So that's how you always know the difference if you only have the two showing up there. And okay. So now the configuration is loaded into memory on the firewall, but it's still not active. In order to make it active, we need to actually commit it. So we're going to commit it. Commit all changes. Whenever you import a complete configuration file, you have to commit all. It doesn't work to import or to make save changes made only by a specific user. So we'll hit commit and we'll come back when that's done. So once that's finished, and one of two things can happen. One, it will stick at the 99% complete window and never move off of that, or it'll refresh you out and put you at a login screen. The reason this is because we imported a complete configuration and it overwrote the logins and the admins, so we have to log back in with a new admin account. And in this case, the configuration had a username of FW admin and the password, which is in the it's in the README. So you can just pop that in there and we're back in again. And we can just look quickly to confirm that our configuration loaded. So we have some security rules in here that came from our imported configuration. It basically just allows access to the virtual machine, the Windows virtual machine, so we can test that. Poke around in here to your heart's content. You can see all the different configuration examples in here. Lots of stuff just to get the basic functionality running in the Palo Alto firewall. But that's all we needed to do in there. Now we just need to go and see if our Windows instance is reachable through the firewall. And we'll do that by stepping out and opening the remote desktop client, and we'll see how it works. We're on Windows here, so we're just going to try the remote desktop connection, and we got the IP address from our Terraform output. This is the untrust IP of the firewall. This is just the username that we use by default in the GCP console where we reset the password. Your name may be different, and we'll hit connect. It wants us to throw in a password, so we'll do that. That's the one we got from the console. This is just saying that it doesn't match the certificate, but this is just for tests, so we're okay with that. All right, looks like we were able to successfully log in to our Windows instance. Let's open up the web browser, make sure we can get to the internet. And I'm seeing current events, so that must mean we're good. Just put in an address that we want to go see, make sure it works, is our GitHub page. So everything looks good. So simple enough. The Windows instance booted up. We were able to solve the problem with that password issue in the image, and everything looks great. We're able to log in, gets to the internet, works the way we expect. So now just to make sure we're not spending a ton of money on stuff we're not using in GCP, let's go clean things up. All right, the final step in our process is to clean up our mess that we created. So we pushed everything out into GCP, but if we left it there, it would start to cost us a lot of money. So we want to go in and clean up everything we put there. And that's really simple here with Terraform. We just do Terraform destroy and let that run, and it'll clean up everything. Won't touch anything else that happens to be out there, only things that it knows that we created with this configuration. All right, our cleanup is complete. As you can see, it destroyed everything. So there's no more resources left out there that could potentially incur costs. So to recap, we deployed a Palo Alto firewall to GCP using Terraform. We had a Windows instance out there, and we had the added bonus in this video of running into a potential bug. So we found a way to work through that, and everything worked out great in the end. So let me know in the comments if you have any feedback on good or bad, anything we can improve on, any new things that you want to hear. Otherwise, we'll see you around for the next videos. Thanks for visiting 2 + 2 = Cabbage. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe to show me there are people out there who would like to see more of this content.